Last week, NASA's study found that climate change impact on global corn yields and the historical U.S. Corn Belt has reduced more than 80% of the productivity. This morning, USDA admitted in their yearly report that the historical Corn Belt in the U.S. has become almost cornless. The Corn Belt was a region of Midwestern United States that since the 1850s had dominant corn production in the United States. It was generally considered to impress parts of 13 states, including Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, southern Michigan, western Ohio, eastern Nebraska. The Corn Belt was characterized by its high soil fertilization, soil wetness, moderate temperatures, and abundant rainfalls, which were well suited to the cultivation of corn. The natural inherited soil wetness ensures that the crop receives a consistent supply of moisture. The moderate temperatures and ample sunshine in the Corn Belt provide an ideal growing environment of corn. In addition, the abundant rainfalls helps to maintain a high moisture levels that corn requires. The combination of these factors has made the Corn Belt one of the most productive agricultural regions in the world. At peak, it accounting for approximately 77% of the country's total corn production. The Corn Belt was also a major player in global corn production, accounting for around 36% of the world total corn output. This made the region a key supplier of corn to international markets. Any major shifts in the production within the region could have significant implications for both domestic and international agriculture. Corn was one of the most widely grown crops in the world and was a staple food for many people. In the United States, corn was grown in large quantities, making it one of the top agricultural exports. The corn production from the Corn Belt exported to over 20 countries all over the world, including China, Mexico, Japan, Colombia, South Korea, led to a global dependence on American corn. In 2100, global production was less than half of the peak production time 80 years ago, and U.S. production was only 20% of the peak. The decreased production of corn in the Corn Belt posed a high risk to global food supplies, especially for countries heavily relied on American corn, such as Jamaica, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, Trinidad and Tobago, and others. This dependence on American corn has caused a significant impact on the global agricultural market. Corn is used as a key ingredient in many food products, as feed for livestock, and as a raw material in industrial process. Corn is everywhere. The decline in corn production caused shortage in food products. This led to increase in the cost of meat products such as pork and steak, trade disruption, and increased competition for limited supplies. Moreover, the shortage of food has generated widespread malnutrition and health problems. It's commonly believed that climate change leads to this global food crisis. Several research shows that cultivation geographics are strongly driven by biophysical parameters alone. Overall, the Earth is 5 Celsius higher than 2020. There is more severe drought events. 7 million people live in drought. More extreme precipitation events cause more flooding, while global average suitability decreased. Different category plants are all being influenced. Therefore, the corn suitability swifts northward, with suitability areas increase in northern regions such as Canada, China, and Russia. While in the U.S., the daily mean temperature in the central and eastern area has increased by 6 Celsius compared to 2020. Besides, there is a dramatic increase in frequency of extreme daily precipitation events, which leads to more frequent and severe droughts. All these biophysical factors make corn belts unsuitable for cultivation of corn. However, the corn belt didn't appear naturally, and it certainly did not disappear only due to natural factors. To understand that, let's go back to 250 years ago. Initially, settlers planted corn as a subsistence crop, mainly for food. The Corn Belt in the United States began to take shape in the mid-1800s when American settlers began moving westward. As they cleared the land and began farming, they discovered that the soil in the region was particularly well suited for growing corn. On May 15, 1862, President Lincoln founded the USDA to support agricultural research and development. 5 days later, he signed the Homestead Act, which allows settlers to claim and cultivate federal lands, expanding the Corn Belt. In July, he signed the Morrow Land Grant Act to provide funding for agricultural education and promote new farming technologies. The early 1860s witnessed a dramatic change from hand power to horses. By the 1890s, labor costs continued to decrease because of technology advanced such as gunplow. In 1910s, big open-gear glass tractors came into use in the areas of extensive farming. In the 1930s, the development of hybrid seeds led to increased productivity and profitable for farmers. This policy and technological advancement helps establish the Corn Belt as a major center of corn production in the U.S. Corn became a major feed grain source in the United States during the mid-1900s. One major reason is that corn production significantly increased with industrialization of the region. World War II created demand for increased food production in the United States, leading to the widespread adoption of chemical fertilizers and pesticides in the Corn Belt. The post-war period saw continued growth and development in the Corn Belt, with the emergence of large-scale agribusiness. At the same time, the United States government became increasingly involved in promoting agriculture in developing countries through programs like Food for Peace and USAID. However, concerns about environmental degradation began to emerge in this period. Despite the challenges, the Corn Belt remained a critical agricultural region in the United States. After 1970, the United States became a major exporter of corn. The Corn Belt emerged as the largest corn producer for both domestic and international markets, and became a symbol of American prosperity and agricultural prowess. The Great Grain Robbery of 1972, in which the Soviet Union purchased a large amount of grain from the Corn Belt, significantly impacted the region's agricultural industry and global corn price, further leading to changes in government policies and international trade agreements. The Food and Agriculture Act of 1977 aims to improve the food and agricultural policies to ensure food security and stability. In 1996, the Federal Agricultural Improvement and Reform Act were introduced to improve the competitiveness of American agriculture in the global market by reducing government intervention and promoting free trade. Increasing globalization brought both opportunities and challenges to the region's agricultural industry. Entering the 21st century, corn has been given new uses, particularly in the form of biofuels. The Corn Belt region in the United States has seen a significant change in this period, with the implementation of the renewable fuel standards in 2005. The policy required increasing amount of renewable fuels, such as ethanol, to be blended with gasoline. To meet this demand, numerous ethanol plants were built throughout the Corn Belt, providing new markets for farmers and creating jobs in rural communities. The largest producer of the fuel-grade ethanol in the U.S. are Post, Valero, ADM, and Green Plains. Together, these four companies represent approximately 36% of the total production. The expansion of the ethanol industry also led to a shift in the transportation infrastructure. Since ethanol plants are mostly located within 50 miles of corn-producing areas, trucks have become highly cost-effective for short-distance transportation, and they moved 78% of domestically used corn. Rail transportation accounts for an average of 21% of domestic corn movement, while barge moves only account for 1%. When it's come to the corn export, Most of the transportation is done through barge and rail to major ports in Mississippi Gulf and Pacific Northwest. Barge moves an average of 54% of the export-bound corn, while rail moves 37% and trucks only account for 9%. However, the increasing use of the corn for biofuels has raised concerns about impact on food security, as corn is a major feed grain for livestock and staple food for many people worldwide. The rise demand for corn has led to an increase in price for meat and other food products. Despite these concerns, the United States remains a major supplier for corn to the countries around the world, but there has been a decrease in export due to the higher domestic demands for corn. Overall, the Corn Belt has undergone significant challenges in the beginning of 21st centuries due to the rise of biofuels. The global corn production reached the peak in the human history. Since then, global maize production has continued to decline. In this period, corn external production and export significantly decreased. This is because the Corn Belt shifted northward and the yield decreased drastically due to the negative impact of climate change outweighing yield gains from technology advance. The effort of more than 20 years of massive production and use have led to accelerating soil erosion and climate change. In 2050, the production of corn dropped to the same level as in 1980s. The biofuel shift have also raised concerns about the sustainability and efficiency of corn-based ethanol production, leading to a reduction in incentive for corn ethanol production by the U.S. government in 2025. Under the 2038 agricultural policy, subsidies for feed grains have increased, but the U.S. still struggles to produce enough food for domestic use, resulting in reduced corn export and soaring global corn prices. This sparked protests and promoted many countries to invest in new technologies and promote local agriculture to increase food production and protect their food supplies. Additionally, significant resources have been dedicated to study out new food resources, such as perennial grain. The effect of the Corn Belt migration starts to become a global challenge. The perennial grain colza is gradually replacing some usage of corn. In 2060, with a dramatic decrease in corn production, the U.S. officially banned producing corn ethanol. At the same time, the U.S. government issued subsidies and incentives to plant perennials such as colza. It has gradually become a major food source these days. However, it is still far from the same production level as corn was in the Corn Belt. At the same time, corn has become a luxury fine dining material. As China and Canada became lead in the corn production, the U.S. started to negotiating terms to import corn from the two countries. Unfortunately, global corn production was only 40% of the production 80 years ago, and the new colza production only equals to about 10% of the historical corn production. There are millions of people in shortage of food. The world urgently needs new strategies to deal with this disaster.